Hello and welcome back to the Boxing Index podcast. I'm joining you after the Josh Taylor versus Appian Khongsong card. A bit of a crazy one. Taylor knocked out Khongsong in the first round with a stinging left hook to the body. To be honest, I didn't even see it when it first happened. The TV angle was on the other side, so I didn't even see what happened. And I just saw Khongsong just rolling around on the floor. He looked like he might have been milking it a bit. Obviously, it's difficult. You kind of have to reserve judgment with those kind of things because it's not you. It's not you taking the shots. So you don't really know how they feel. But yeah, he just seemed. It didn't seem that bad, and then he was just on the floor for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, before the fight started, I was thinking all these questions. Like, obviously, it's been almost a year since Taylor's last fight. I was wondering how sharp is he going to be. He's obviously had the change of trainer. Will he have adjusted well to it? And then, yeah, didn't really answer any of those questions tonight because, yeah, it was just over too fast. I mean, I sort of thought at the start, I was trying to analyse him a little bit. He seemed to overreach slightly with one of his shots, and I thought, oh, maybe one of because I don't know too much about Khongsong, but I've heard he's quite powerful, so I thought counter right could be a problem if he overstretches like that. Or it seemed his style might have changed he seemed to be boxing more on the outside, whereas with under McGuigan he boxed a lot on the inside, especially in that Prograis fight. And also obviously Ben Davison's quite a defensive coach, so I thought that might come into play. But yeah, we didn't really get to see any proper evidence. It was just over too quickly. I guess, yeah, the main talking point is probably whether the unification with Ramirez will come next. Ramirez is promoted by Bob Arum and based in the US. With the whole coronavirus situation and just general boxing politics, that's a difficult fight to make. And then I guess another thing was that there was a lot of talk this week about the pound for pound king in the UK. People saying Tyson Fury, people saying Josh Taylor, Josh Warrington. I think tonight, obviously, you can't take too much from tonight because I don't know how game Khongsong was, to be honest. Even though he was the IBF mandatory and he had 13 KOs in 16 wins. Obviously, both men were 16-0, but Taylor had the far better resume. I mean, Khongsong's last fight was against someone with a losing record, with a 9-11 record last time out. So I don't know how seriously you can really take him. But now, at this point, Josh Taylor's last 5 opponents now have a combined record of 110-1, which is pretty crazy. Obviously, Tyson Fury's had that great win over Deontay Wilder, and Vladimir Klitschko. But I just think in the amount of time that Josh Taylor's done it, in only 17 fights. If he can unify the division, I think that definitely puts him as the pound for pound king in the UK. But I would even say he's up there right now, to be honest. Yeah. So, and then also just quickly, briefly touch on the undercard. Thought Charlie Edwards had a good fight with Carl Williams. I think it was a lot less comfortable than a lot of people expected before going into the fight. He seemed to get dragged in quite a lot, but I thought he managed to keep his composure quite well through the fight. He moved well. He tended to get caught when he held his feet a bit, but when he was moving well, he seemed quite comfortable. Yes, that was his debut at bantamweight. He said that he'll probably go to super flyweight rather than bantamweight. I think the bantamweights are a little bit just too strong and powerful for him. So yeah, we'll have to see how he fares in the future. And then yeah, otherwise on the undercard, obviously George Davey. I interviewed him earlier in the week. He basically said what he did. He did what he said he was going to do. I think he's definitely one to watch for the future. And then Ethan James as well. Yeah, good win for him. Yeah, so next time you hear me, it'll be after the first fight of the Charlo brothers doubleheader pay-per-view, which I'm very much looking forward to. Don't know how many of you will have stayed up for it. But yeah, I'll be speaking after each of the fights on that card and letting you know my thoughts. Right, welcome back. I'm actually not joining you just after the Charlo pay-per-view. It's actually the next morning because I was knackered at the end of it and couldn't really be asked to record this. But I've got all my notes down, so remember what happened. I'll give you my thoughts now. Obviously, the first fight up was Casemiro against Mika. I mean, what a start to the night's pay-per-view. Casemiro obviously 30-4 now, and he stopped Mika, who's now 24-1 in the third round. yeah, I guess people may not know too much about these guys. Casemiro probably is known best over here. He knocked out Charlie Edwards a couple of years ago. And he knocked out Frank Warren's fighter Zolani Tete in Birmingham to win the WBO bantamweight title that he defended tonight. Mika hadn't really fought anyone of any particular note. He'd fought a few times at York Hall, but this was very much his first test at the highest level, and I guess you could say he failed it. But I mean, I don't know who could have beat Casemiro tonight. He just came out throwing bomb after bomb, showing some serious power. He had Mika wobbling literally from midway through the second round. I'm surprised it even made it to the third. But yeah, I just think that because obviously the fight with Casemiro and Inoue had been talked about. I think it had been actually arranged twice and then delayed. So I guess Casemiro was happy to get out, but just the amount of power that would be on display in a fight between those two makes the prospect of that battle absolutely mouth-watering. Then next up on the card was Figueroa against Vasquez. Another good one, another war. I don't know what was in the water tonight at the I think it was the Mohegan Sun Casino or something. I'm not sure exactly what the place is called. But yeah, everyone just came out throwing bombs. Vasquez looked as if he was in with half a chance at the halfway point. But I think Figueroa was just too relentless and Vasquez couldn't cope. He'd obviously never been 12 rounds before, which probably didn't help. I think by the end of it, the whole of Twitter was sort of unanimous that the fight should have been stopped a couple rounds earlier. Vasquez just seemed to be taking damage for no reason. He was probably behind on the cards at that point. I think Figueroa wants a fight with Neary next, who also fought. I'll talk about his fight a bit later. He fought on this card. Figueroa, he seems like the kind of fighter that you might use to test potential world-class prospects to see their level, but I'm not convinced that he's a world-class prospect himself. He's got good power and stamina, but it seemed like his footwork was a bit limited, and I think he might struggle with the top guys in the division. But there are plenty of exciting fights out there for him, and he definitely has a fan-friendly style. I very much enjoyed watching him tonight. Then you had the first of the two Charlo brothers in a main event against Derevyanchenko. Sorry, I always struggle with that one. This was a career-defining performance for Charlo, especially at middleweight. He'd obviously fought at a high level at super welter, but this was his first big test at middleweight. Derevyanchenko had obviously fought GGG and Jacobs before, and I thought Charlo dealt with him a lot better than they did. The scorecards at the end were 116, 112, 117, 111, 118, 110, all in favour of Charlo. He remains unbeaten and the WBC world champion. I think this meshed well with the other fights that had been earlier on the card because it wasn't explosive, but it outlined the more technical side of the sport. And what I did think was interesting was that Charlo's sort of known as being more of a puncher. I think his nickname is the Hitman, whereas Derevyanchenko's nickname is the Technician. And I thought that Charlo actually almost, I don't think this is a word, but he almost out-techniqued the Technician. He sort of showed he had a real boxer-puncher style in the fight. And I think, he was maybe the more shrewd about going about his business. His height, reach, and power advantages became evident really quickly. But Derevyanchenko, in all fairness to him, he never stopped looking for openings or coming forward. But Charlo was just a bit too disciplined. He didn't take his foot off the gas for 1 minute. And I think with that win, he's proved himself one of the best in the division. And I think he definitely deserves a unification or a super fight next. I mean, there's loads out there in the middleweight division. It's absolutely stacked. You got Canelo. Well, I guess Canelo's super middleweight at the moment, but he could definitely come down. And you got GGG. I think he'll want to get that fight in before too long because obviously we can't expect GGG to go on forever. I think he's 38, 39 now. Then there's also all-American battles with Danny Jacobs and Demetrius Andrade, which I think are both great fights as well. I feel slightly sorry for Derevyanchenko because he just continues to fall at that final hurdle, obviously, as I mentioned, with the GGG and Jacobs fights. And I'm not really sure where he goes from there because I don't know if you can keep giving him opportunities against the top-level opposition if he doesn't capitalise on any of them. Although I guess a lot of people said that they thought he beat GGG. So maybe a change in weight for him or, I'm not really too sure where he goes from here, but I guess he'll have to sit down with his coach and go back to the drawing board. Then we started the undercard because it was obviously like a weird double header where you had 2 fights, then one main event, 2 fights, then another main event. So yeah, there was a little half an hour break. Then the next fight up was Danny Roman against Payano. They're both experienced former world title holders, which made for like quite a technical matchup. This side of the card was a lot more technical, whereas the first side of the card was a lot more explosive. Danny Roman obviously coming off the back of a pretty brutal split decision loss to Ahmed Aliyev in Miami at the start of the year. So back-to-back losses here would have been quite damaging for his career, especially considering he's not old or anything, so he would have really had a rebuild job on his hands. Payano is most likely coming to the end of his career, being 36 years old, which is very old at that weight class in particular, considering the smaller guys rely so much on speed and quick reactions, which tend to fade in their early 30s. I mean, I remember with the Cao Yafai Roman Gonzalez fight, which is also on that Miami card, people talking about how Roman Gonzalez might be on his way out, and he's only 32. So yeah, 36 is very old at super bantamweight. But funnily enough, Payano actually very much didn't show his age. He had quick feet to get off the ropes, especially in the first half of the fight, and slick counter punching. Danny Roman was constantly trying to pin him down. He just couldn't because his feet were just too quick. He was in and out. And I'd say he looked the more agile fighter. It probably looked the younger fighter. And strangely, if anything, he might have showed slight naivety, which you might not have expected of an older fighter, to get dragged in the later rounds and not just try and tie Roman up because he was probably ahead on the scorecards. But perhaps that was a bit of fatigue catching up with him. Maybe that's something to do with the age. I'm not really sure where he goes from here. He's unlikely to get another title shot. I know his coach spoke about maybe taking him all the way down to 115. He reckons he can go there, 115 pounds. But yeah, maybe it's time for retirement for him. But yeah, we'll have to see. It was obviously a much-needed bounce-back win for Danny Roman. Unanimous decision, 116, 112 from all the judges. He didn't start well, but kept at it and was relentless to the end. And I think his work rate was what won it for him in the end, to be honest. It got them the decision, and he should have actually been given a knockdown at the end of the fight as he landed literally just on the bell, so that might have tipped the scales even more in his favour. Similar to Figueroa, he looks maybe to be slightly off the pace from those at the top of the division. Maybe even Payano with his style could have given the guys at the top a better fight. But I do think Danny Roman will provide a good challenge for anyone, and there are lots of fights out there for him in a stacked division. Yeah, then next up was the Neri against Alameda fight. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit blurry-eyed for this one, so I don't have too much to say about it. I may have taken a small nap in the middle. It was, in fairness, almost 5 a.m. here. It was for the vacant WBC Super Bantamweight title. Neri was obviously the more established man at the highest level, having beaten Payano, who fought in the fight before him. Alameda had never really been tested before, but I guess everyone needs their breakout fight, so this was his opportunity. And it looked at the start as if he might be taking that opportunity. Neri seemed to find it really hard to establish himself at the start, and he couldn't impose that power that the commentators were really going on about. This power. I think he had 24 knockouts in 30 fights before this, but he just couldn't seem to set his feet or anything. Alameda was just jabbing and moving, and Neri could just never quite set himself. And I think the pace and the distance, especially in the first half of the fight, definitely favoured Alameda. Neri began to find his shots in the latter half of the fight. It was a bit of a boxer-puncher performance in the end, which is slightly unusual for Neri, as we're more used to seeing him as a puncher. And it definitely wasn't your typical all-Mexican dust-up, which is what I think a lot of people were expecting. But yeah, Neri finished the stronger of the two. It took a similar path to the previous fight, actually, between Roman and Payano, as Alameda seemed to struggle to deal with the pressure at the end, getting walked down. Earned Neri the win, 115, 113, 116, 112, 118, 110, which I thought that last scorecard was very wide, but it was a unanimous decision for Neri, and most likely, I guess he'll be looking for a unification bout with Figueroa next. And I think Figueroa might have called him out already. And I think Alameda showed that he deserves another fight at that level. So hopefully he gets something. And then, the final fight of the night, the big unification, Charlo against Rosario in the super welterweight division. Obviously, Charlo coming into it is the established star of the division. He's won lots of fights against the top guys like Austin Trout and Lubin. His only loss has come to Tony Harrison, which was debatable anyway, and he avenged the loss. Rosario kind of came out of nowhere in this division. He hadn't really fought anyone of note. Then he became mandatory to Julian Williams, knocked him out in spectacular fashion. So he did earn his way to this kind of big fight. But I personally didn't have too many expectations for him going into this fight. And I thought at the start that I'd been proved right. Obviously, Charlo started with a knockdown in round one. It was a bit more of a flash knockdown than anything else. He sort of caught him on the top of the head. It's quite hard to see in real time, easier to see on the replays. Then Charlo sort of slightly strangely eased off the pace, and Rosario started stalking him down by the third and through till maybe the sixth, and I think he was on top. Charlo seemed to be feeling his body shots a little bit, and it was just a style that you're not really used to seeing people come at Charlo with. People don't really walk him down because he has such power and he can hurt you with those counters, which I guess told true as in the sixth. Rosario seemed to have Charlo in a bit of trouble with throwing a flurry against the ropes, but Charlo's power finally came to the forefront once again since that first round knockdown, and he knocked Rosario down heavily at the end of the sixth with a left hook and then a straight right combo. And Rosario, he was all over the place on the way back to his corner, and I think he was trying to hide it, sort of bashing his gloves together, calling out to Charlo, but there was no hiding it. His legs were all over the place. Round 7 was more of a recovery round for Rosario, but I guess it didn't really work because right at the start of the 8th, Charlo came charging out, jab to the head, jab to the body, and Rosario was down out of nowhere. I was slightly confused, but he was literally convulsing on the floor and stumbling to try and get up. It seemed like a bit of a strange shot to finish it with. I guess maybe he got caught to the ribs or just, I think it literally just looked like the air just left his lungs. It was quite a strange one, and he was taken to hospital afterwards, so obviously I hope he's okay. But yeah, great night for the Charlo brothers overall. I thought they both proved their critics wrong tonight. I thought in the first fight, I always get confused between their names, but in the first fight, in the Charlo Derevyanchenko fight, I thought Charlo really showed his defensive side. His head movement was great. I thought his footwork was good as well. And then I thought both men actually showed that they have really good chins. Everyone sort of talks about their opponent's chins because obviously they punch so hard, but they take some shots themselves, and I'm not sure. I don't think either of them's been dropped. I think one of them might have been dropped once, but I think they've definitely deserve more credit than they get. For the Charlo and the Rosario fight in the super welterweight division, I guess the natural progression now is a unification fight with Patrick Teixeira, or maybe a fight with Jarrett Hurd, who still carries quite a big name in the division. But I think if he wants to have those true super fights with the likes of Canelo and Golovkin, he's probably going to have to move up to middleweight with his brother. But yeah, that was the whole card. I thought it was a great night of boxing from the Taylor Khongsong card to the Dorticos Briedis card of the World Boxing Super Series, which Briedis won, and then obviously followed by this double-header pay-per-view. I thought it was definitely worth the money. Over in England, they were only 15 quid on Fight TV. I very much enjoyed it, and yeah, just overall a great night of boxing, and hopefully that can continue next week. I think it's the Matchroom card. They're trying one on Sunday with Buatsi Kalic as the main event. It'd be good to see Buatsi back in the ring. He hasn't been out for a while, obviously, but he's always exciting to watch. Probably, he always gets the knockout normally. And then Babic is in there as well. And then some of the younger Matchroom prospects fighting. John Hedges, big 6'5" super middleweight, making his debut. The Kane Baker Akib Fires fight after that's rescheduled, a bit of a grudge match. That one will be exciting to watch. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And although there are no fans at the moment, the quality of the boxing is holding up. So thanks for joining us here. Make sure to go check out our social medias at Boxing Index. Go check out the website, www.boxingindex.co.uk. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Cheers, bye.